All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started since we're at the 104 mark. And we're going to be going over our last installment of our back to school legal research class, which is kind of going to be a demo of a question that was sent by one of you all, one of the participants. So just a basic refresher. This is me. I hope you know me by now and feel comfortable emailing me if you have any questions about your legal research. And we have Jenna, and you can contact her if you have any public service related questions or anything like that. Want to add anything, Jenna?
Just that I'll be answering your reference questions in the next 2 weeks while you are out.
Yes. I will be on vacation, so Jenna will be answering any reference questions over the next 2 weeks. So she'll be here. One of us is always here if you need us. And our course schedule, of course, we're on our last session today, which is a demo live answering of a reference question. And we're going to go ahead and get started with legal research part 2. So just as a refresher, as we covered last week, we covered legal facts, legal issues, different sources that you can use, and then finally determining whether or not those sources are relevant to your legal research. So last week we went over what are the key facts. So you're going to want to gather the key facts of your question or your client's question, just to kind of determine what's going on. You're going to establish the legal issue. So sometimes in the middle of a long story, there's a legal issue like hidden underneath. So it kind of takes a couple of different what we call reference interview questions to kind of dive deep and get to the bottom of the legal issue. And then what is the jurisdiction? So the jurisdiction plays a important role in your legal research because it may determine what forms you're able to use and where you may file those forms. So for example, if it's civil versus family law, civil unlimited, if it is a civil harassment versus a domestic violence harassment, so things like that, or a restraining order, I'm sorry, things like that would determine the types of forms and resources that you may find of use to you. Secondary, when you do find these resources, it's good to determine what is primary authority and what is secondary authority. So primary authority, as we covered last week, is like laws, legislation, things derived from the court. Whereas secondary sources are like materials that you would use to help better understand a legal issue. So these would be law articles, law reviews, practice guides, treatises, horn books, things like that. And then lastly, when you are looking up a law or a case on Westlaw or Lexis, you can see by the indicators used on the case if it is good law or not. Good law meaning that it would be of use to you in your legal argument. Bad law could indicate that it is overturned or up for debate. So again, just a quick recap on our legal research tips. It would be to determine your legal issue, narrow your jurisdiction, set expectations with yourself and your client that no two cases are the same, check your sources, and consult secondary resources. So this is a reference question, or a question that was sent to me by one of you. If you want to identify yourself, you can, but for now, we'll just treat it as if it was an anonymous person sending me this question. So the question reads is, I'm trying to determine the requirements for egress and exits inside a mobile home unit. So local ordinances, state and local mobile home law. So this is a great question because it requires the researcher, myself, or whoever's conducting this reference question, to think of synonym words. Egress, is complicated term that could be referred to differently in common, conversation. Research local law, and then also gets national law references or state law references. So my initial research method, honestly, is to always just Google just to see what comes up. And I just Googled egress and exits inside a mobile home unit just to see what would pop up. And by doing so, we could see that a lot of different synonym terms or related terms popped up in this search. So I see manufactured homes would be a term that's kind of repeating itself a little bit. Mobile home construction and safety standards. So that may be something that could be irrelevant. And HUD, H-U-D, HUD, which is department, housing department of the United States, right? So these words, I list them all down and I try to find, what connects them together and if I can use them in my search method. And then also when I scrolled down a little bit, I found that there was a legal code in the results. So this was legal code 4070 that highlighted manufactured homes and egress. So I was like, oh, okay, this may be helpful. So when I opened it, it pretty much solves the question almost immediately. So it has an entire section on the number and location of exterior doors and exits. And you can see that it has the regulations for a single wide unit and a double wide unit. So again, I found this from the Law Cornell just by initially Googling it. And then it also has like different, I don't know how to describe it, like different dimensions for the doors as well, things like that. So this would be probably very helpful for the client, right? So I remember in their question that they also asked for local law. So let's see. So the question below, so it also included the city of relevance, which was Rancho Mirage. So if you don't know, you could usually just Google the city in question. Let's say it's Rancho Mirage, let's say it's City of Riverside, things like that, and then add municipal code afterwards, and it's usually available online. So as you can see, this is the when you click on the link, it takes you to the municipal code online. And there is a section on the left-hand side to search or to go over the main table of contents to search or to see the ordinance list. So we're just going to do a quick search. So we're going to click on search and we're going to kind of plug in some of the words that I had set aside earlier. So if you remember, I put mobile home, manufactured home unit, and egress, exits, things like that. So I started with those and I eventually got to mobile home and I ran a search and it came up with these search results. So there's some of relevance. So there could be the Mobile Homes Park Act. My interest immediately sparked with mobile home and manufactured housing standards. So as you remember earlier, one of the key synonyms, keywords that we found was manufactured homes is a synonym for mobile homes. And then also of relevance could be mobile home park subdivision standards. So that's not something that I may have thought about, or maybe the client didn't think about, is that there could be different, like if it's a residential mobile home park, if it's a park mobile home situation, it may have different standards. So we're going to click on 17.3120 mobile home and manufactured housing standards, which will bring us to this one. So as you can see, it is under Title 17, zoning, Division 3, development and operation standards. and standards for specific land uses, mobile home and manufactured housing standards. So I'll just read this to you really quickly. This section provides minimum developmental standards for manufactured or mobile homes. So our synonyms, mobile homes and manufactured, which shall be installed in the following manner. Mobile or manufactured homes may be used as single-family dwellings if the home is certified under the National Mobile Home Construction and Safety Standards Act of 1974. Mobile or manufactured homes, which are used as single-family residences, shall be installed on an approval permanent foundation system in compliance with this title. And before the installation of any mobile or manufactured home, the director shall determine that the subject parcel together with the proposed mobile or manufactured home is compatible with the surrounding development. So as you can see, there is standards, but they don't list it as they did in the previous code that we were looking at, right? Instead, they mention the National Mobile Home Construction and Safety Standards Act of 1974. So to me, as a researcher, I have to go a step further and try to find this act to see if it has the same requirements as the previous code that we saw earlier for the state of California. So again, so I noticed that it mentions this act. So I found it on the National Archives website. And as you can see, it has, it's longer than this. I just did a screenshot of the initial findings and purposes. But essentially it has the same requirements, but it would require maybe printing out both and just kind of seeing where they overlap. So again, going forward, I would print out both the code and the act to kind of see where they overlap. Since the code is maybe more recent than the one from the 70s, I would plug that into one of our databases like Westlaw or Lexis, and I would try to find cases that cite that. So doing that is called like shepherdizing or key citing on either Lexis or Westlaw. And I would find similar cases that are good law that reference that code. And then I would send to the client to see if those would be of like reference to them or relevance to them in their search. Additionally, once they get those cases that are good law, they can use those as their primary authorities in their memorandum or briefs that they're using for their legal argument. Does anyone want to see putting in that code on Lexis or Westlaw? Whenever I bunch them together, I call them Lexlis. Okay, so let us go back to the code. So right here, Cal codes, I'm just going to copy it. And then I'm going to go over to our database page. Can everyone see our databases?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go on Lexis first. And I'm just going to plug it in and see what pops up. Okay, so it popped up exactly with the code, which is great. So over here, you can see just like the general code, the history, but it's not letting me shepherdize it, which is weird. So I'm doing this live. I forgot to do this before, so let's do this together. Let's try searching it this way. Okay, but that was interesting when you saw, did you see that when I put it in, it gave me a synonym legal phrase of the National Manufactured and Housing Construction Safety Standards Act of 1974. So if I click that, let's just see what pops up. So this is, oh, and then you can view the full document. So that's why it's not popping up, because it's huge. So this is the whole thing. So I guess they just haven't digitally put it on there. But this is pretty big. Let's see if it will let me do search for exit. Nope. Let's go back. And then it says, oh, okay, find references to this administrative code. Nothing. Okay, well, that's weird. So Lexis is not helping. So we're going to try to go back over to Westlaw. Okay, so here it is. So this has a more full text. So I like this a little bit better. So sometimes, just like the way that Lexis or Westlaw might present like legislation or cases, maybe just different, like maybe there's more room. So I like this better because it has more of the full body text. And then we can see more information about specifically exit facilities and egress windows, for example. So things like that, as well as exit facilities, exterior doors. So these are going to be really helpful in kind of determining the original question, which was the requirements for egress exit inside a mobile home unit. So from there, now that I've confirmed, so remember I found initially on Cornell Law, which is still a reputable source. However, having it on Westlaw, maybe you're sending it to your, maybe you're a paralegal and you're sending it to your boss, or maybe you want something different. You can always find it on either Westlaw or Lexis, and it will give you a full text, as well as tell you exactly where it is inside the content of the material that it's in. So from here, I would probably download this document. So you can download it here on the right-hand side. I would download it as a PDF. And I would download it. Okay, so that's a really good question, Linda. Westlaw, in comparison to, so Lexis, if it's good law, it'll usually do like a green indicator. For Westlaw, it usually either doesn't, if it's just blank, that means it's good. If it's bad on Westlaw, it's going to have like a little red flag. It's going to say, no, this is not good. And then remember, Westlaw is powered by Keysight, while Lexis is powered by Shepard's. So kind of going over here, going over to the content and analysis. So it cites this section from the Health and Safety Code as their primary authority. So I'm just kind of curious. So let's see what that is. So, well, it doesn't have any reference to mobile home, but maybe it has manufactured housing. So remember our previous, yeah, I know, I kind of like Lexis a little bit more too, but it's good to just maybe play with both just to see what pops up, So they didn't have mobile home on here, but they had another keyword. So that's why I keep my list of words I'm using for the search. And they have manufactured housing. So they'll say it says that requires inspection services for manufactured housing. So let's go down a little bit more. Okay, but essentially this is the primary authority because it's asking for what applies to manufactured housing. So then that is given in more detail in the previous one, which we are using for the client. Does anyone have any questions? I know that it's kind of like a back and forth process, but it kind of helps, just like depending on how your brain works. I like going back and forth between Lexis and Westlaw just to see what pops up. Is Westlaw free? I don't think that it's free. I think that your law firm or your organization usually has to have a subscription to it. Westlaw is free if you come into the library and use it on either our Wi-Fi or on our public computers. During COVID, they were having free remote access. And to my knowledge, they are still continuing that. During COVID, Westlaw and Lexis were providing this. However, Lexis recently suspended that service at the end of July. But again, to my knowledge, Westlaw is still continuing this remote access service. And the instructions to get remote access are on our website right here. Yes, and then you can always utilize the library if needed, and you can just come in and use our Wi-Fi as well, as long as it's on like the Wi-Fi IP. Then you should have access to it. And then while I'm curious, while we're just, looking through it, I'm going to look up that National Mobile Home and Safety Standards Act. Just to see what pops up. Oh, here's interesting. So it didn't pop up to the specific act, but it did come up with the overview. So on Westlaw, when you do like a search, it usually pops up first with an overview. So it will contain things from multiple filters. So it will have a small section for cases, a small section for trial court's orders, statutes and court rules, regulations, things like that. So that's interesting. So if I want to look at the cases, maybe more in depth, it says it pulled up 43. And then it highlights the act in the cases. So again, so you can see the indicator is usually on the left. So this one has a yellow key site flag. So yellow can mean, it's kind of like a yellow light. It's a little bit warning. So these are the cases that are providing it with like negative treatment or negative citing references. So because there's a little bit too many, I wouldn't use this one in my legal argument. I'd probably, so see, this one doesn't have anything, but if we were maybe to keep looking, we could find something, see here with a red flag. So red flag is no, we can't use this one. I mean, we could look at it for maybe like why this was overturned or why this is bad law, but we couldn't use this in our like our brief memorandums regarding this research question. So we would probably want to look into one of these cases just to see why is this act referenced, kind of go into the details a little bit, and that would be part of the long part of legal research, is honestly just reading these cases just to see why it's cited. And then we could also just compare the results on Lexis. So sometimes cases will be on different they'll be yield in different order. So we'll kind of just see the difference in that. Does anyone have any questions or anything that they want me to live look at? And then another thing that I like to use just while we're looking through it is I like to look, you can search within the results and you can look for specific terms. So this is where I would go back to my list of terms and I would search within the results for these terms. Let's come back here and see what this pulls up again. So for this one, it didn't pull up any cases. Which kind of shows the difference in the information yielded between the two. And then also as you are searching, it saves your history when you're on that session. It's not going to save it after you close out of the window though. How long is this? That's not too long. Oh, you're welcome, Linda. So again, like this part honestly is the hard part because now we have to go through all the databases and kind of just like piece it together. So this would probably take me maybe a few more hours just to kind of finalize my research findings. But the initial research of finding the municipal code, finding the California law is, the research strategies that everyone should have so that we can eventually get to the a little bit more difficult part. But remember, we did it by going through our keywords, our relevant search terms, and then finding our local and state jurisdiction. So finding any local law, finding the municipal code. So remember, almost every city has a municipal code. So if you remember in my example last week, I looked up for the city of Riverside. if I'm allowed to have a pet pig. So that is a question that is easily answerable by looking through the city-state code or city's municipal code. Does anyone have any other questions that they want to submit that we can look through really quickly? Thank you for providing that question with us, Linda. It was a really good question because it had so many layers and it provided us with the opportunity to look at so many different avenues of researching.
I wanted to add, Andy, that, for example, when you were doing your Googling, going back to my presentation on media literacy, of determining what sites to click on. So you gave the example of going to Cornell Law, which someone that works in a library or has used it before might know that it's good law, but for someone who doesn't, by going onto Westlaw and finding that exact code, that then you know for sure that it's good law. And then going to something like a municipal code, because I think it's .gov, that website would show that it's a government organization. And so that would also make it known that it was good law, good information for someone to use. So using those skills of using the internet. And I don't think that you use this as an example, but if I commonly, when I'm looking up legal questions, there will be blogs written by attorneys that I never give to customers as an example, because I don't know who that attorney is and I don't know if it's right. But like that inspectopedia.com. So you can still look at those, but you also want to double check. And if there was a blog that had mentioned that code that you ended up looking up, that California code, going on Westlaw would be a good way to fact check and make sure that the code that they're citing is correct and is relevant to the topic that you're searching.
Yeah, it's a great point because, like, as you said, as you can see on my initial search on Google, we have like Inspectopedia, and we have howtolookattahouse.com, but we also have some legitimate sources like .gov, things like that. So we want to focus on like the .gov, .us, .org, things like that, that may be a little bit more easy to determine that they're legitimate sources. Sometimes like this one, this blog, it does reference maybe like a code, like I can't see exactly because I have like my chat box open, but if it did reference the code, I could look up the code and then read the code myself to see if it would be relevant. So that would be also a search strategy. So if no one has any more questions, we really appreciate you taking the time over these past few weeks to attend our class. This is the first time we've had a class like this, and we're really hoping to offer it again in the future. We will be sending you the meeting recording so you can look at this on your own time if you missed the class. Hello. Or if you want to just share it with your coworkers or colleagues. Again, if you have any questions, you can always email me or email Jenna or email us at our law library email. So that was going to be at the end. Our lawlibrary.riverside@arclaw.library.org. And you can send us a reference request there, and we will try to get back to you within 24 hours or to the best of our ability. But we really hope these research skills and these classes help you and provide you with some valuable information. So we'll go ahead and stop the recording, but if anyone wants to hang out and ask some additional questions, you're more than welcome.